Hey guys, got a different type of video for you today. I wanted to start a new series where I'm just kind of going through retro decks that me and some of my friends have used in the past to top events. Just kind of sat here watching the European Championship. We didn't decide to go this year. The plan is to go next year, but in the meantime, I think we're going to just bring you some content that's slightly different. I've actually tried to record this video so many times. Um, for whatever reason, I can't do it on my laptop. It just keeps crashing. So we're going to try it on the tablet and see how it goes. What we've got here is a deck profile from 2018. So retro in some respects, 6 years ago. But in the grand scheme of the game, I mean, it's not that retro. But compared to kind of how the game's played and kind of how the format was, it's a lot slower. So I feel like it warrants kind of the discussion. And this series, I don't really want to focus so much on the card choices and maybe even specifically the deck. I just want to talk about the format in general alongside the deck. So this was actually at the start of a new format. We just finished the kind of Worlds season. So Worlds had been, all the Continental Championships had been, had a new ban list. Goki got kind of nerfed. Trickster Sky Striker was no more. And we moved into kind of the era of pure Sky Striker. So Sky Striker is an engine. We're already well into that because the deck came out, what, maybe like May 2018 or somewhere around there. And yeah, from about 2018, about May 2018 till the January. I want to say it was January, but it could have been like March. Maybe it was March 2020. Around that time, this deck, this engine dominated competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not saying it was outright always the best, but it was always around the top. Engage. What can I say? So we've just had the ban list. The whole kind of ceiling of the game has been brought down. And Sky Strikers is outright the best deck, pure Sky Striker. So this was my local regional. I actually ended up getting second place. I finished X1. I only lost to first place, and he actually also finished X1 as well. He lost the last round of Swiss, and we actually missed out on winning the regional just by one tiebreaker. Like literally, like one. Like let's say for example, the last digit of his tiebreaker was a 6, and mine was a 5, for example. So that was unfortunate. I think one of my opponents, at least one of my opponents, dropped quite early. So I don't think that really helped my chances. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because if you're going to lose, you want to lose to the guy that wins it. So that's fair enough. So shout out him. And I think at least two of my friends topped that event as well. I think Kojin playing Trickster, the only Trickster player, and Sam also playing Sky Striker. So it was 5 Sky Strikers in top 8, 2 True Dracos on 1 Trickster. So yeah, I picked up True Draco. Quite. It was. I hadn't been playing the deck for very long. I picked it up after the ban list. I played it at one event, the LLDS series, which is no longer a thing. I ended up getting top 4 in that, so got our first top with True Dracos, and then the very next event we got second at the Leicester Regionals, and it's quite a different build as well. So I wasn't playing any hand traps, but as you can see in this build, I decided to play more hand traps, just to kind of combat the meta. So I'll quickly go through over the deck list, and then we'll just talk a bit more about kind of the format. So Knuckles had just come back, so big boost to the deck. Of course, Masterpiece was banned for a while. I do wish I took this deck to Nationals, actually. I ended up playing Outergeist, and it was like an incomplete deck list. So I didn't do very well, despite doing really well the previous year in 2017 in the Zoo format. So I instantly picked up this deck and started doing well again. Ignis, I mean, this card's good. You can see we play more spells, so that's why we've maxed out on the Ignis. We played 2 Majesty's Fiend as well. Sorry, Majesty Maiden. These guys all get quite big with Diagram. They get that 300 boost, and of course, if they were to die by battle the first time, I think if they were tribute summoned, purely if they were tribute summoned, then they won't die. So really good for crashing with monsters that are like 2/6, 2/7, or 2/8, or just running over things in general. Then we have Amano Iwato. This card's still relevant even today in the kind of runic stun builds. Really good going first because it means like your power spells are going through, your desires, your demise, your diagrams, heritage to draw, +1s, +2s, etc. And also it's good going second to just break boards. Just being able to turn their monster effects off is really quite strong. Of course, it pairs well with the card on the side, Raigeki. This is the infamous Rocky Shocky combo. Normal summon Imano Iwato, followed by placing a Raigeki, and they could have 5 Omni Negates, and they still wouldn't be able to respond, so it's pretty good. Then we play Ghost Ogre. Not really a traditional card to play in a Draco deck, especially a Draco Demise. And of course, this was 6 years ago, so I'm thinking my logic was probably to hit those multi rolls to stop the kind of recursion for Sky Strikers. Thinking back to that format, as I say, it was really early into the format. We'd not long had the ban list. This was in September, so a lot of people knew to just jump on Sky Striker. They knew Sky Striker would be the best deck. Aside from Sky Striker, people didn't really experiment too much with other decks. Sky Striker was the only tier 1 deck of the format because this was before Thunder Dragons came out. So it was a weird kind of period of like a month and a half maybe, where you just had Sky Striker as the best deck, just the only tier 1 deck, and then you had kind of like Altergeist, Trickster, True Draco, Goki still in the background. I think this was before Goki had the boost and came back with the Rongo Bongo stuff. So I'm assuming the Ogre was maybe for the mirror match to hit like opponents' diagrams, hit their tributes, hit the other Draco monsters, maybe something like that, and then any rogue decks, and then of course Ash, arguably one of the best 1-for-1 cards ever printed. So good. Even if you're technically taking a -1 on the Ash, what you're negating, if it's impactful enough, can just end their turn anyway. And when you can get a +1 off Ash, you always take it. Really good against Sky Striker, hitting those engages. Against the diagram of the mirror match, stopping the heritages, plusing too much, hitting desires. So many good cards you can hit with that. Then we have Disciples. This was like a mini pot of avarice for the deck. Recycle a few Draco cards and then draw one. Of course, we like drawing cards in this deck. And then of course, it also had the generic True Draco spell or trap effect to let you have an additional summon. So that was always good. And you get the chance to use the grave effect when it's sent from the field to the graveyard and pop a spell or trap on the field, which is always good. Heritage also had that effect, but it also had the effect to draw cards for how many different types of Draco cards were sent from the field to the graveyard. And what was good about this is it worked really well in the mirror match because it counted all Draco cards, so you could very easily get up to a draw 3 off this card in the mirror match. And of course, it gave you the additional summon effect as well. Then we have Diagram. And you can just compare this now in 2018 to 2024. And you can see it's at 1 in the current format. I don't really know why. I don't think it warrants being at 1. I think it'd be fine at 2. But it's such a powerful card because it's not hard once per turn. It kind of has that generic field spell effect where it gives you a rotor. But what was really strong about Diagram is you could activate Diagram and then chain a card, like a quick play card. And then you'd also be allowed to send that card for the effect of the Diagram when you're searching, because it would just destroy a card on field or hand. And of course, it doesn't target, so really good on resolution to get an effect. And it'd be cards like Imperm. You'd like activate Diagram, chain Imperm, negate an effect or something, and then send the Imperm to get a search. Just giving you an example. And then Terraforming. This card was at 3 in my LDS list, but we decided to play 2 for this particular tournament for whatever reason. Maybe I was just seeing too many field spells. Diagram, you could just destroy Terraforming anyway to get a search, or aside from that, I think because terraforming didn't really do anything other than um, search you a diagram or be used as diagram fodder, I think two was fine. Double Desires was at two then. Really powerful card. Almost everything you can afford to get banished because everything's in multiples except for Knuckles and Skill Drain. So we're not really getting punished off a Desires unless we get really unlucky. Duality is another card again that I was playing at three in my previous Draco list, and then we decided to play two for whatever reason. Not too sure why. Maybe I was just seeing too many of it in testing and decided to drop it down to two. Demise. This was at three at the time, and I did play three again in my previous build, but I think because I decided to play Ogre and Ash, I didn't want to see too many monsters. I didn't want it to be too clunky. Generally, Draco decks don't play a lot of monsters, and you can see there's 12 in this build, so there's always the possibility to draw into multiple monsters. So we wanted Demise to be a card where we're only really activating it when we know we've already been for a few monsters. Maybe I would never activate it if I had a hand trap in my hand. I'd always use hand trap first and then resolve my Demise. And what I found about Demise is usually in the Draco deck, some players that are kind of new to the deck, they'll probably activate Demise as early as possible. Whereas Draco's such a grindy deck that, like, if you outgrind your opponent and then resolve a Demise mid to late game, it's so game breaking because they've whittled your card advantage down, you've whittled their card advantage down, and then a card that's such a big swing like Demise allowing you to draw into three, especially if you had no cards in your hand previously. Even if I'm drawing into a hand trap, the other two cards usually will still allow me to play, and hey, I can always destroy them off a diagram as well, so you'll still get value that way. So Demise was really strong. Apocalypse, really good for like dealing with like big monsters that couldn't be targeted. You could just half their attack and deal with that. Also, it's quite helpful that you could just kind of like pop off a because I think you could just send any True Draco card, yeah. So that kind of allowed you to deal with problem cards, like if you sent one of your Draco spells and you can pop a problematic spell or trap on the field, or if you're sending an Apocalypse or a Return and you pop a monster. And what was quite good about the spells and traps at that point in the game is there wasn't really that many cards that negated card effects. A lot of monsters that had negation effects and a lot of spell and traps that had negation effects focused on activation. So the Draco stuff was really ahead of its time in that sense because it allowed you to play around a lot of cards by giving you a different type of destruction. Then we got Skill Drain, which I believe was at one at the time, and even if it wasn't, I probably would have only played one because I had Monarch's Erupt, and of course you'd always rather have Erupt than Skill Drain because it's a one-sided Skill Drain. And Erupt was at three, but I chose to play two because I didn't want to see too many of the same card. So that's why. And I mean, pretty much every time you see this card, you're probably winning the game if it sticks. It's so powerful. Rivalry and Gozen were both at three at that point. Of course, they're at one now for obvious reasons. Floodgates are really powerful cards. We didn't choose to max out on these. There wasn't any need. I think Rivalry, it didn't really hurt my deck because Imano always goes back to hand anyway. By the time you flicked Rivalry, you wouldn't need an Imano anyway. And then Gozen Match, even though we have different attributes, it was like Rivalry, it was good to just kind of control your opponent. And again, we can just send them one by tribute summoning, normally with a Draco monster, or using the spells and traps to tribute over them, or just sending them with a diagram. So it was really good to be able to turn your floodgates on and off when you needed. Quite unfair, to be honest. A little bit like what Snake Eye are doing now with Skill Drain and how they have cards like I think it's the Sinful Spoil spell card where they can get rid of it. So it's quite powerful. To be able to turn off your floodgates if and when you need to. Then another change was we played Infinite Impermanence in the build. For whatever reason, I decided to play two rather than three. This was, I guess, for going second and just dealing with, like, if someone put up like an Omni Negate and I had, like, let's say I didn't have a strong hand and I really needed like a particular card to go through, Imperm was good in that sense. It just kind of featured as another Imano Iwato in a certain way. And also, as you can see, in total there was 6 hand traps. You don't really play many hand traps in Draco decks, so yeah, this was something a little bit different. I always like to play my own builds, even if I'm playing like a meta deck. I still like to put my own twist on it, and that was kind of my twist, playing some hand traps in a demise Draco deck, and no one really expected it, and I think that's why we got second. We just was able to out tempo most decks. I think we only played against 2 Sky Strikers in that tournament. We played against a Light Sworn. A Light Sworn was round 1. Invoked was round 2. Burning Abyss was round 3. Sky Striker round 4. Trickster round 5, Sky Striker round 6. So it was a 6 round regional, so not the biggest regional, but it was still quite skill intense because I mean the guy I played last round, I mean he's top Euros. The Sky Striker player that I lost to, I think he's topped YCSs before. Um, yeah, and like the top cut, I think there's quite a few good players in there as well. Multiple like Premier event tops. So yeah, it's quite skill intense, and it's always nice to top your city's regional as well. That was the first time I think I topped Leicester's regional. First, not the last. But yeah, the deck performed quite well. The main deck. I mean, we already spoke about Erupt. Really powerful card. And then we'll just go on to the side deck, and then I'll just talk about the format briefly again. So you've got the Sphere Mode, and that's really for Goki and anything that really puts out a big board that we're just not really dealing with. Oh no, we can't have our normal summon. I guess we'll just activate Draco spells just to allow us to summon anyway. And then Gamma Seal, again, kind of doing the same thing. We'll tribute over a Sky Striker monster, cut them out of Ray, and then just kind of steamroll from there. Twin doing the same thing, hitting back row decks, hitting Sky Striker cards. Often what I like to do is outgrind the Sky Striker deck and always leave their multi-roll and let them think they're going to resolve their multi-roll. And then in the end phase, either pop the multi-roll or let them reset and then pop the cards they set, because then they're getting banished. So now they've got less spells in their grave to resolve their additional Sky Striker effects. And that always felt pretty good as well. It felt pretty free. Raigeki, self-explanatory. The Rocky Shocky combo. Mind Crush, when I first looked at this deck list and I saw the Mind Crush, I felt that was really out of place. I couldn't really work it out. It just seemed really random. And then I realized afterwards that if we went first, one of the cards we really feared was evenly matched. And this card was just game breaking to Draco. There wasn't really much you could do. Like if you're going first, you don't know what you're playing against. You could get OTK'd, so you are still going to commit to the field. Games 2s and 3s, so you always have to be wary of evenly matched. If your opponent's going to start their turn and go straight into the battle phase, you're just going to Mind Crush. And what was good about Mind Crush at that point in the game was it still had its original kind of ruling, where when you would call a card, even if you got it wrong, your opponent would still show you the hand. Now I believe they don't have to show you the hand, they just say, no, I've not got that card, and you have to take them at face value. Being able to see your opponent's hand has always been good throughout the history of the game, whether we go back to Trap Dust Shoot or any other cards as well. But just, any card in general that kind of mess with your opponent's hand has been good, from Painful Choice, up to tactics in the modern game. But yeah, free information is great. And of course, if you hit the card as well, that's always good. But also, one thing I'll say is there was a lot of searching. Whether it's Goki, Sky Striker, Trickster, Draco, this would be good in the mirror match as well. You watch your opponent search a card, immediately Mind Crush it, and who knows? You might hit multiple copies, which always felt devastating. So that was why I played Mind Crush. Anti-Spell was at 3, and Anti-Spell's just, it's at 3, it's quite a good card, but at 1, it's quite game breaking in the current format. So I've definitely lost games to Anti-Spell when it's been at 1, where it's like I've still sided in cards to deal with it, but if you don't see, your twins or your cosmic cyclones, it just wins your opponent the game most of the time, because you shut your opponent off for a turn and then just OTK them. So yeah, Anti-Spell was good in this format, because if I'm flipping this against a Sky Striker player, they're going to feel bad, because even if they have the Widow Anchor, if they activate it, then they trigger a Draco effect, which is another thing that I didn't even talk about actually. Like, I remember like the first time I played this deck, and I realized just how powerful they were. It was like, what? So my opponent tries to play the game, and that advances my game state. Like, activate a trap from deck, and this was one of the first few decks I think that was activating cards to the deck. Sorry, activating cards from the deck, not just searching. Because throughout the game, there's always been cards that search, of course, but Draco and maybe another deck before Draco introduced being able to activate cards straight from the deck, which is just insane. Of course, it was only Dynamite and Ignis that did that. Majesty just searches, but yeah, being able to activate a spell or a trap from your deck is just wow. It's amazing. And that allowed us to play around anti-spell as well. So you could just play around anti-spell with Ignis. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, flip my own anti-spell. You activate a card, cool. I'm just going to activate Disciples or Heritage from my deck. So that's pretty good. Um, yeah, but yeah, anti-spell really good against Sky Striker, because then they set, and then if you already have Twin Twisters, you're taking away their back row, or when you tribute off your Disciples or your Heritage, you're going to pop their back row as well. And it's like they've got to wait till next turn to use it anyway. So yeah, it felt really strong, anti-spell. Then of course we've got evenly matched. This is for against Sky Striker, against the mirror match, and then like any other deck that like commits a lot to the field. It felt pretty devastating for Sky Striker players if they tried to set up. They committed a bit too much to the field and got hit with an evenly, and same with the Draco. It was just a really powerful card. I think this was the only card I actually borrowed for the event, because at that point I didn't have evenlies. Evenlies had only been out for, well, actually they'd been out for a while, because they came out, what was it, like October 2017? Yeah, so even had actually been out for a while, but yeah, for whatever reason, I just didn't own even these at that point. So I borrowed them, and I can't remember who I borrowed them from. But shout out whoever it was, because I appreciate that, man. That was nice of you, whoever it was. And then the one IO, we main decked this in the last Draco list we used to top, but I think I'd kind of come to the conclusion that we didn't always need to go first. If you're going first, then IO's insane. But I kind of realized at the start of this regional, I'm actually just going to go second even when I win the dice roll. And the reason is because if I'm playing against Sky Striker anyway, like if I'm going to play against Sky Striker or, Draco, I want to go second. I don't want to go first. I want to go second and start picking apart their board. So I think I won the dice roll round one against the Light Sworn player, and he absolutely swifted me. Like I think I opened quite a weak hand, didn't commit too much to the board. He drops a JD, he drops another JD, and he must drop like that Chaos. I think, was it out then, that dragon? That is it Leveneer? I don't know if that was out then. He dropped something, man. It could have even been a BLS. I just remember him dropping a Chaos Monster and swinging for like 9k damage, and me thinking like, what just happened? Like, is this not going to be my day? But then we did reverse Swifting, one game, 2 and 3, and then from there I just decided to go second. Like the Invoke player, he went first. The BA player, he went first. Sky Striker let them go first. Even Trickster, I felt quite confident. I'm like, I think I can play around the reincarnation draw. I just hope he doesn't have double reincarnation draw. And he didn't. And of course, we're actually playing Ash as well. So that was another reason maybe why we played Ash, to avoid the reincarnation draw lock. Yeah, so it's not, if it was just pure Demise Draco, I think we'd struggle more going second, but the fact that we played some hand traps did allow us to do that. And of course, that's just my playstyle. It might not have worked for someone else, but for me, it did work. So as I said, I got second place. The theory behind the deck, I think I've kind of explained it. I really enjoyed playing this deck. For whatever reason, I didn't play it after. I just dropped it. I guess I wanted to try a new challenge. My only regret, really, looking back, is not playing the deck sooner. I would have loved to have tried out Masterpiece. I never used Masterpiece. I'd never used Dracos before the September 2018 format. So, yeah, that's really my only regret. as I say, the format was really early in its inception, but people worked out quite early on that it was just going to be Sky Striker as the best deck. So you would see a lot of Sky Striker in the early regionals. Um, I'm not sure if there'd been any YCSs at that point, but it was an interesting format because it was a small period just before Thunder Dragons got dropped, and this was basically the start of Eternal format, or TOS, as some people call it. Um, a really interesting time in the game. I quite liked it. Um, to see this deck do well again, you'd need to see Diagram go to 2 or 3. The floodgates I think are fine at 1, but it probably does need something else. Maybe we could get some more support. I don't know. Maybe we could bring out another Draco monster. Could we try Masterpiece at 1? I don't know. Dryden came back at one point. We've not seen Masterpiece come back. Is Masterpiece so game breaking that we could never see it again? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to say try it at 1, see how it does, but I don't think it's ever coming back, man. I can't remember if it's even. It must be banned in the OCG, surely. Something I'd have to check out. Of course, no extra deck because we're playing Erupt. And the first time I did play this deck at like a locals, I was playing around with the extra deck because there was like another guy, like another kind of not a masterpiece, but another kind of big Draco monster. I think it was like a level 9. It took 3 tributes. Um, and I think like Masterpiece, I could be remembering wrong, but I think like Masterpiece, depending on what you tributed over, it was unaffected by that card type. And then, of course, when this card would die by battle or card effect, I could be remembering wrong. It was definitely, if it died by something, it would special summon out either a fire, wind, water, or earth monster from your extra deck. And I think it could be a fusion, synchro, or exceed, if I'm remembering that right. Because, of course, links were still. Links didn't exist when that card had been printed because Dracos came out in like Maximum Crisis, I believe, which was 2017. And links didn't come into the game till like September, August 2017. So yeah, it took me a full year and a half really to actually end up playing Dracos. So it came out in like May 2017, and I didn't play it till September 2018. But worth the wait, because I had a lot of fun at that event. Funny story is I was actually supposed to judge that event. I think I was going to be the head judge, and I found out that a few of my friends who used to come to our locals, who lived in different cities like Kojin, like Dale, were going to come down. And I was like, well, if they're all coming down, then it'd be nice to play, see my friends. And if when you're judging, you don't get a lot of time to talk to your friends, especially if you're going to be head judge. You're going to be focusing on the event. So yeah, I'm glad I played because we got second, so it was worth it. Final thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of vintage look back at a previous format. Definitely want to do some more, get some old decks out there, speak to some of my friends, maybe do this next time with someone else's deck, so that we can get a bit more of a discussion, so it's not just me that's talking about it. We get some other thoughts, other opinions. So I'll have a think and see what we can get out there for you guys. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, and we'll definitely do it again.